Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to Bisma Passion, YouTube's premier channel about all things women's football. Match day number 18 is just wrapped up with two very scintillating matches here, with England taking on Nigeria and the Aussies taking on Denmark here. And of course, without further ado, let's get into the reviews of what we learned today from these matches, with England taking on Nigeria here, with England lining up in a 3-4-1-2 formation and Nigeria lining up in a 4-2-3-1 formation. And this match was very much tense from the very beginning here, but throughout the overall game in the first half and the second half, Nigeria were the dominant side, and it was really unfortunate for them to not really get a proper shot on goal, even go ahead here, because they would get the better side here, even though England were the favorites going in. There was a lot of stress and a lot of strain from Serena Weigmann's charges here, who just struggled to unlock the Nigerian defense, even though they had a few good chances themselves, but it wasn't anything in comparison to the Nigerians here. The first half, there really wasn't much to write home about, as it was very heavily transitional based here, same as the second half as well, but again, the Nigerians had the majority of the control here. And in the second half, that's where most of the chances were going Nigeria's way, but unfortunately they were just not able to find that killer pass or that killer shot to really threaten Mary Earps here, and that was unfortunate for them. But luckily, towards the very end of the game here, there was an opportunity for Nigeria to capitalize, because Lauren James, I don't know what she was thinking in this situation, but she decided to stamp on one of the Nigeria players' back, and she received a red card after a VAR review, and was rightfully so a red card, because you can't really do that. That's really reckless play, and that's very malicious in my opinion if you just look at it, because it's not a situation where she slipped behind the player or anything. She was perfectly in control of the situation there, but she decided to stamp on the player, and she got a rightful red in my opinion. And for the remainder of the game here, England were playing with 10 players, whereas Nigeria had their full 11, and I think that was the time Nigeria should have capitalized, at least in the second half there, but unfortunately they weren't able to do anything, and the game ended up 0-0. And just like Sweden versus the USA yesterday, the game would go into extra time with everything on the line for both teams here. England obviously playing on the back foot with one player down, and Nigeria looking for the all-important winner here, and it was very intense the next 30 minutes of the game here. Particular shout out here goes to Shamaka Nadozie, who throughout the first 90 minutes and the added time here, she was putting in a huge shift here. She was one of the main factors that was keeping Nigeria in the game, and she's really let her class show throughout the World Cup so far here, not only the group stage but even here against England. But even though she was up to the task here, up front there was not really much there. It was not really a matter of the Nigerian players not being able to find a chance, but England themselves were very defensively astute, and at the end of extra time it was unfortunately the dreaded penalty shootout. Now England here won the toss and elected to go first, of course, and obviously to the side where their fans were. And at the beginning of the penalty shootouts, the first penalty takers for both teams, they missed, and then at the second time of asking, Beth England would score for England before Michelle Alozie would miss for Nigeria here. And unfortunately this was pretty much it for Nigeria, as even though they scored their next 2 attempts, England scored their next 4 attempts, with the final goal going to Chloe Kelly, who sealed the victory for the Three Lionesses here, who advanced to the quarterfinals of the Women's World Cup. And of course that does mean that the Super Falcons of Nigeria have been knocked out of the Women's World Cup, and that also means that Morocco are the only African nation remaining at the Women's World Cup. Looking at the overall match, this was a very good display by Nigeria of where the team is going under Randy Waldrum. It's unfortunate that they did not win this match, as again they were the better side here, but I do think a lot of faith must continue to be put into Randy Waldrum and into the team in general here. More resources need to be pumped into this team, because Nigeria are definitely a very good side. They were very well rounded in this match. In a previous video I did say that they need to add a little bit more dynamism in their attack, and they did. It's just unfortunate that again they just couldn't find a shot on goal here, but much credit must go to the Nigerians here, and of course their coach Randy Waldrum, who've done a very good job of getting this far in the Women's World Cup. And looking at future tournaments, whether it's continental or even at the next World Cup, I do back Nigeria to do even better than they have done now, because they're a very good side, and again it's just unfortunate that things did not go their way here. And for England, even though they will be happy that they have qualified for the quarterfinals of the Women's World Cup, they will definitely be going in a little bit more wary in the next round, because they are of course without out Lauren James for this game because of a red card here, and this is a huge blow because throughout the entire group stage process and even in this game, Lauren James was undeniably the most threatening player for the three Lionesses, and to go into the next game without her is definitely going to cause a lot of hiccups in the attack here. So hopefully Serena Vikman can come up with a contingency plan to deal with the loss of James here, as again, Nigeria really pushed England to the edge and they were lucky to be the better team when it comes to penalties, but we will see when England get their next opponents in the quarterfinals of the World Cup. And in the next match, we had Australia taking on Denmark, with both teams lining up in a 4-4-2 formation, and of course the Australian Sam Kerr was on the bench, but she was fully fit and ready to come on in this match should the coach have decided to. Now going into this game, both teams have started off very well, but particularly Denmark were the side that was threatening the most here, as they had some very good opportunities that they just did not take here. And it's unfortunate because very soon it was going to be a situation where Australia were going to do the whole spiel of getting up and starting to wake up now and attack on the front foot here, which is not what they weren't doing, but it wasn't to the level of Australia as we know them and as we've seen so far in the Women's World Cup. And very soon enough, in the 28th minute, Caitlin Ford would open up the scoring here from a very good pass from distance by Mary Fowler here. She was pretty much on her own and finished off coolly to give the Australians the 1-0 lead early on in the first half. And going into halftime here, the Australians were firmly in control and Denmark were pretty much just chasing the game here. And into the second half, it was pretty much more of the same, but there was a little bit more of a concerted effort by Denmark here. And the biggest difference between these two teams was that when Denmark would get an opportunity to attack, their line of approach would be more direct and more effective in comparison to the Australians. But it's unfortunate because really the MVP when it comes to the attacking of the Danish side here is Pernille Harder, and unfortunately for her, she was having to play more as a center forward and setting up chances for her teammates who really, by the looks of it in this match, did not have a lot of shooting practice done in training here, which eventually did cost them in the end, as in the 70th minute, who else but Hayley Raso would come back and score in her second consecutive game here to give the Australians the 2-0 lead after a very impressive break by Australia to make sure that they were comfortable going into the rest of the game. And pretty much at the end of it all, the game ended up 2-0 in favor of the Australians, and there were some very good opportunities by Denmark, as I've said before, but unfortunately they ended up on the losing side here, not because they were the poorer side, but simply because they lacked a huge presence in attack here apart from Pernille Harder. For the Danes, it does of course mean that their World Cup journey has come to an end, but there's a lot that they can learn from this match. I think on a federation level here, they do need to look back and see where it is they're going wrong in terms of not producing enough quality talent in attack, because the midfield is pretty good in my opinion, and the defense is the defense. It is just so beautifully organized in my opinion. It's just that they're facing a tougher opposition who were just spoiled for choice when it comes to attack in Australia. So I think it just is a matter of the Danish Federation looking into how they can improve their systems to breed more attackers, because Pernille Harder, I think she does have at least one more World Cup run in her before eventually she does hang up the boots, but it definitely is something to look at just by going on this match alone. And as for the Aussies, it is obviously a very good account of themselves. They were facing up a very defensively astute team here, but they did very well to break apart the defense and unlock them in those two opportunities that we saw on goal here. It does show that Australia are a very diverse group in terms of their tactical styles of play here, and much credit must go to the coach and the players here for doing well to adapt to the opposition. And it will be very intriguing to see how the Matildas adapt their play between France or Morocco, depending on the result of that match tomorrow. But other than that, those are the things that we learned from the matches on display today. Hopefully there will be more entertaining games, as like I mentioned just now, France and Morocco will be taking on each other here, and they will be joined by Colombia and Jamaica, with Colombia definitely being the favorites going into this match, but the Jamaicans as well, they could just pull off a surprise, but we will see tomorrow. So other than that, thank you very much for watching. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you in tomorrow's video.